for another edition of the App Podcast. Today, we've got a fun, creative conversation for you guys. Falk Eumann is the Executive Vice President of Creative North America at WongDoody, a global creative technology agency at the Infosys company. He's based in New York City and Executive Creative Director with over 15 years of international experience in digital. He blends technology, design, and human-centric storytelling and innovation to bring brands to life, focusing on purpose-driven work, next-gen tech, including AI and creativity and immersive experiences. He joined WongDoody in 2025 as Executive Creative Director North America after roles like Creative Director at MediaMonks, leading campaigns such as Dragonfly, and founding Partner Executive Creative Director at Caviar. He's fluent in English and German, and he's passionate about pushing creative boundaries, has spoken on AI and creativity, including WongDoody's creative AI initiatives, and is active in pitching ideas for events like South by Southwest 2006, which we are official press at, and we will be at as well. Falk, thanks so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate your time and spending a little bit of time with the audience today.
Thank you for having me.
So,
I can't believe they didn't put Dutch in. I speak Dutch as well, which is I still try to use this language still because I lived there for 12 years. But I can't, you don't never need it.
Yeah, well, hey, it's always nice to, to have a good repertoire, as they say, right? Us Americans, we're horrible. We just expect everybody to speak English. It's a horrible quality.
It's a handy language, so.
Yeah, good point. Good point. All right, so let's kick it off with a little bit of your origin story. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, where'd you grow up, what'd you study, and how'd you get into the advertising industry? How'd you get into the creative world?
Yeah, long story, but maybe it's a nice intro. So I was born in a family of engineers, like they were all like math and physics people, and the only creative really was my mom. She was painting patterns for wallpapers and textiles, but everybody else really was like a total math person. And I already really young, I loved ads, and of course, looking back, Germany didn't have even the best ads in the world. But what did I know? I loved ads. Like I loved print ads. I loved posters. So when everybody was annoyed that programs would be interrupted by ads, I'd be watching them, and I loved it. I didn't really know what to do with it yet, so I was like, I just loved this somehow. And what happened was, and I was still a kid. The gymnasium, which is like the high school in Germany. You do like an internship where for 2 weeks you can work somewhere. And I'm from this little town in this big industrial area in the northwest of Germany, which is kind of like a big Detroit with all its issues, basically also. And I was looking for a spot, and all my classmates were like in the supermarket or the DIY store. And my parents had a pair of friends. They were architects, and they had a friend who was in advertising in Düsseldorf, which is like one of the German capitals for advertising. And they basically said, hey, why your son, he can stay with us for 2 weeks and do this internship. He can do an art director internship. I didn't even know what that was yet. And my parents were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. That will heal him from the advertising.
They thought you'd get it out of your system, huh?
Yes, because I'm supposed to be like whatever engineer. So I went there for 2 weeks, and they were like for me like the coolest people. They were driving a Saab, and they had like a cool apartment with nice furniture. And their friend was this guy with a ponytail driving a Jeep, an open Jeep in Germany. And he was the creative director at DMB&B, which was an agency, a big agency in Düsseldorf. And he put me with an art director and a copywriter in a room to work with them for 2 weeks. So I ended up making like my first layouts and mock-ups for, it was a tobacco brand, actually. They were called Samsung. And it was still like cut and glue and copy kind of layouts. And I loved it. It was like the coolest thing. I was just didn't want to leave in the evening. I loved the office and the people and everything. So I came back and I was like, that's what I want to do. So from then
That's
on,
so
I
cool.
tried to figure out how to do this thing. And then at some point, I started to look at graphic design universities. And before I wanted to study, I was actually, you could learn it as a craft. You could learn typesetting and printing and all that stuff. So I started doing that, and I loved the work so much. So I was working with a little ad agency in Essen, Germany, and the guy let me do just like about everything. So I learned Photoshop, I learned how to make layouts, I learned typesetting. I went to this school, which was not like, it was like half study, half school. And then I was like, my parents were like, you have to study. Everybody in this family studied, so you got to study. And I was like, I really want to work, and I can do this thing now at this ad agency, and they offer this thing. I don't even know how to call this in English. It's like a kind of a study, but not really.
Is it like an internship or an apprenticeship? Like I
It's almost like an
remember.
apprenticeship. Yeah,
Yeah, like
something
I,
like
I
that.
remember I remember learning from the German culture that they have like this thing called, like, it's basically like the last year of high school you actually go to work for a year before you go to college, or it might be in university, right?
Yeah, it's almost like a level in between what you said and the university. You learn a craft, really. It's really a
Got it.
craft. It's like from the
Yeah.
old days. So I was like telling my parents, let me learn the craft. I'm gonna study afterwards. So I did that, did all the things, and then I was so hot on working. So I was secretly already applying for all the cool agencies in Düsseldorf to get a job as a layouter or a designer. And I actually secretly did these interviews. And at some point, I was like, I got a job at this really cool place. I'm not going to study. So I did that. I started working at an agency. They were called Rampen Partner. He was a friend with Frank Gehry, and they brought the Frank Gehry buildings to Düsseldorf, which are still standing there, actually.
Wow.
So I got to work in this super cool development, totally underpaid like a maniac, and I slowly worked my way up through the ranks, the agency ranks, from like layouter to junior art director to art director. And I worked on big clients already back then, like it was Microsoft. I worked for a bunch of beer brands, which was super fun. Long story short, I never ended up studying. So
I
I
love it.
worked there. My career started really nicely, and at some point, this company was acquired by Havas, and it got really big and boring, frankly. And then I got so everything just kind of happened to me. So then the next thing was another agency of the year in Germany hired me away from that company. So I started working there, uh, and I was far too young. Absurdly, I was the creative lead for Canon Germany, Canon cameras,
Yep.
printers, and all that. And I love photography. Like the only other job I ever considered was photographer. I love photography. Could not afford anything doing that, but fortunately, I didn't do it. And then that company was acquired as well by Dentsu, and they invited us for a pitch for because the Canon work we did was apparently the best in Germany. So we got to pitch for the global account, and that was suddenly against shops like TBWA Naboko in Amsterdam and WCRS, I think, in London. So I suddenly was in this global pitch, and I was still like a kid. I was relatively young. My copywriter was like 10 years older than I was. And we were pitching, and then months later we won this pitch, and my boss came to me and was like, do you want to move to Amsterdam? And I was like, sure. So I moved to Amsterdam and helped building this it was called, the company was called KN. I almost forgot, KN Dansu. And they built this office up there. So it was super cool. Like we did the global account, everything from brand identity, we did all the campaigns, like everything. It was a good time. Then that thing got bigger and bigger and also boring. And I went into the
I'm sensing a theme here.
and then I went in this thing, and I'm sure many creatives on your show tell you that story. It's like I was like, I had it. I'm now gonna freelance. I'm not gonna do this. So I started freelancing, and I had like a freelance copyright partner I had one in Amsterdam, one in Düsseldorf, and one in London. So for like a year, I was basically just doing new business with agencies everywhere, like O&M and Saatchi. And frankly, I was just working for 2 weeks, and then I would just mainly be drinking beer, having a good time, and then I would do like the next thing. So that was like a phase of my life. Uh, and then I stumbled into what was becoming my future business partner, which was a woman from Media Republic, which was back then in Amsterdam, like the first true digital agency. And she was like a mix of a entrepreneur, tech director, and yeah, it was kind of like platonic love at first sight. So we started working together, and it went so well. And what happened is a year later we started a little company. So, and then a whole stint of entrepreneurship for me started that I never signed up for. Like, I wasn't even good at it. I learned about it. It was frankly that lady that was like so good in connecting the dots business wise. So we started this little ad agency, which was called Falk Sons,
Uh-huh.
with an SU and S because she was Korean and her name was Sun. So people would approach us like, you misspelled your name, you know, like Sant is written with O. Like, what do you think, German guy? And I was like, oh, that's the idea. She's called Sun. But we also came up with this whole fake identity for the thing, pretending that it was a 300 years old company founded by forefathers, blah, 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 blah. Um, and then we worked on really interesting things for Adidas, for Cirque du Soleil. We worked for a local newspaper, and really had like a really nice little team of young creators, maybe 20 people, and really didn't earn any money, frankly. Like we were just pitching, over delivering. We were in this part where agencies are when they're just like they're putting all the effort to establish themselves, and you get great work out of it. But financially, it was like totally not a good idea what we were doing. Um, and then this lady was, she said, we should start a digital production house. Let's just focus on the digital. The agencies have no clue how to do it yet. And we just do this as a white label thing. So we started doing that. And that actually worked really well. So we worked with VML and with Widen and all kind of good shops. And we were kind of like the secret weapon on the digital side. So that went really well. And what happened then? I hope I'm not getting too detailed. I'm just like
No,
I did
I
so much
love it.
stuff. I'm just trying to give you like a
No,
little sum up.
I'm a fan of the bio, so totally
Okay,
fine
good.
going as much history as possible, and I think it intersects well with kind of going from Germany to a larger global role, and then kind of the emergence of digital. So I think this is a fun thread.
So here we are still in Amsterdam, right? In this, we had this awesome loft that was there, were about to tear down, but the city of Amsterdam had this program which was really cool. So we had this really cool office with a bunch of kids driving skateboards everywhere and street art, and it was the coolest thing ever. I'm like still think that was the coolest thing I ever did. Again, financially, that wasn't really a thing, but we could live with it and it was fun. And then this guy hit us up, and it was an AP from Caviar Content, the big film production company from LA. And they had sent this guy out to look for a young company to acquire to start their digital arm. And that was the time when clients were still throwing a lot of money at super creative, super immersive web experiences. There was a time when you had like Be Real, Stink Digital, Acne Studios, North Kingdom was like a super awesome shop also.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
Stink for sure.
yes, right. So a million meetings later, and we pitched with them, and suddenly we were helping them pitch on a thing for BBDO in New York for AT&T, and it was like a totally other ball game for us. We were just like, phew. 1,000 meetings later, they basically decided to do this with us. And my business partner and I moved to Los Angeles in, think 2013 or something like that. And we started Caviar Digital. So we basically did that thing that MediaMonks was doing, Stink was doing, Acne was doing. We were like a super small, super hot shot for like a year or two. We were suddenly pitching against the best with the best, and we had only 20 people in Amsterdam and 6 in LA. Like we were like a joke
Uh,
compared to MediaMonks. But because Caviar had such good momentum, and had these really cool directors, and we were like the weird kids from Europe, this somehow worked really well for a few years. Um, but then things caught up with us, and it was like a mix of bunch of Europeans that don't know what they're doing in the US. Like we had like our sales engine was designed for traditional advertising with the company that had acquired us, but we were of course a whole new thing. But we were also late to market. We were a little bit like all the others were already established and we were late. And then what happened? I still think Facebook data-driven advertising at that point was the main killer for us
Oh
because
yeah,
it was
the fact
suddenly
that
the time.
you could just kind of throw up creative and let the Facebook algorithm print money on direct to consumer brands.
It was so lame. It was like
Mm.
clearly the all the marketing directors were like, "That is amazing. I just get a clear ROI," which was super questionable and of course was proven wrong because
Yeah.
clicks or views mean zero. But at that point, it was like, oh, I just invest money X. I can tell my boss I'm doing my job. I'm not going to spend $1 million on like an interactive video website that can track my face and spit out unicorns, you know? So all these companies tanked. Most of them closed or pivoted to data, really, because at that point it was all data. And then Google Material Design gave it the killed whatever was left of creativity online because suddenly
Wow.
everything was everybody had the same parallax effect, everybody a minimal website. It was all like super tidy, and frankly, in a way, it was nice. It was everything was so easy and light, and still things look like that. But the weird stuff that brands were doing back then, like these hyper experiential, immersive websites that people would be doing, they almost completely disappeared at that scale. Long story short, we closed the thing, was terrible, but we got everybody a new job, which was nice. So that was so important, but it was really the hardest thing also that I did probably in my life was like closing this all down.
Yeah.
I had moved to New York already because I just couldn't deal with LA as a European. It wasn't the right thing. I came from Amsterdam and I was so excited about LA, but I just couldn't do it. Um,
What was the worst part about LA? Being a European, what was the thing that just was the straw that broke the camel's back, and you had to move to New York just to have some sense of home or reality?
I mean, of course, the time difference is also playing a
Yeah.
major role.
Mhm.
I love LA mid-century architecture. I still miss that part, but there is none of the oh, this is where the Dutch built that thing, or this was like where the German village was, or this is like the British part. There's none of
Yeah.
that. Like I
It's
miss Brickstone.
not enough
Uh,
culture, not enough history. It's all too new. New
it's
world.
also new. People, I mean, also don't get me wrong. I love visiting LA. I have friends, very good friends, also in LA. But in LA, generally, it always felt like whatever people say to you doesn't really matter.
A
They
lot of
don't really mean
bullshit.
it. But I was also with a film production company, so it was like extreme. Like it was so
Oh
insane.
yeah, yeah.
Because
Everybody's a director. Everybody's an actor. Everyone has a project.
it was so wild. Where are you located, by the way? Are you in LA?
I'm in San Diego. I probably would have seen myself in New York many times, but my wife is fifth generation San Diego. She came up through Omnicom and kind of semi-retired after we had our kids, and
Yeah.
she even got mad at me when I moved her from San Diego to Santa Barbara, which is like 5 degrees of temperature difference in a smaller city. So I am stuck in San Diego, but again, it's 70 degrees today, and I like New York. So New York and Chicago in 5 day increments is just fine for me.
Yeah. I feel you because we try to live in various places. My wife and I, especially during pandemic, but now we literally live 3 blocks from my parents-in-law, and where my wife grew up. So my daughter's going to go in the same elementary school.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
So same similar story, yeah.
Yeah.
Like so totally was unavoidable to be in New York in so many respects.
Yeah, and
Um,
Amsterdam's probably one of my favorite international cities. I used to go there every year for the IBC conference with Adobe at my last agency. And my opinion of Amsterdam before visiting was like, oh, that's where people go to smoke weed before it was legal, and like red light district, and like it's such an artistic town. So much history, so many beautiful museums, the canals, the food scene. I mean, it's one of my favorite European cities. And just the bike culture, the culture of like not being in cars is it's just something to see.
I love it so much. If I ever move back to Europe, it's the place I would go. It's more home for me than Germany. I hope no Germans are listening to this show, but I would go back to
Well,
Amsterdam in a heartbeat.
I owe you. I'll get this in the mail for you. It's
Oh
one of my
wow, what's that?
clients. It's a
Oh no way.
Lost in Amsterdam. It's a Berlin-based travel publisher. So you got to send me your address, and
Oh, that's lovely.
I'll
Oh,
get
thank
that to you.
you.
Yeah, of course.
That'd be so
Awesome.
cool.
So do you want to keep going on the bio a little bit, or should I ask you some questions and we'll jump back in?
Whatever you feel like.
Yeah. So
Honestly, maybe you should ask some questions, otherwise I'll just go on forever. I'll jump in later. I'll package it in the rest.
yeah. Well, I'll get back to the journey, but I think a couple things I think were interesting about the conversation that came up. One is that I feel like you thrive in indie kind of environments or smaller agency environments. It seems like when things got too corporate, when things got too big, when things got a little too like when you got acquired by these larger companies, that's when you started to get restless. What do you love about the indie world or the smaller agency world? And what do you not like about the bigger kind of holdco style gigs?
Yeah, it's a super interesting question because I don't even I totally understand that when I tell you this, that this is how you would see me, and this is true. I never actually look at it this way. What I want to say is, I think the feeling of indie can also exist within a big holding if it enables you and empowers you. Like,
Interesting.
because without going on another CV rant, uh, I ended up in MediaMonks, who at core was maybe an indie shop, but when I joined was 2,000 people, and then got acquired by
Wow.
S4 Capital, and then
Yep.
got, I'm sure you know all the stuff.
Yep.
Um, but the indie approach was still in there. So I think what's important to me is not even so much the size of the company or how many acquisitions, but it's more like the freedom and the agility to just do what you're best in. Like, I'm not good in navigating politics, I think. I think I strive when people trust me and let me do the thing and create the culture and build teams and work with them. And I've seen this happening in indie agencies, but I've also seen indie agencies that are terrible to their people. You know what I mean? Like, it's such the culture in the end is permeated from whatever the leadership is. And this could be a 10-person shop or that could be a 10,000-person shop. I
Mm.
think you set a certain precedence for how you deal with people and how you deal with business, and it will trickle down no matter how big it is. Um, so I think I do need my freedom to work with people, be honest, be direct, not having to be political. I think that's super important to me. It should be. This is supposed to be a fun job. I really think it should be. I still believe, just like when I was a kid, liking the ads on German TV. Many things changed, but in the end, I still feel like I want to be proud of the things I'm doing and what I'm working on and the people I work with. Like, I think it's for me, it's that simple.
I love it. I think that you're right. I interviewed Forrest, who was the CEO of Formula Monks, and he had a really interesting book about how smaller teams are able to drive innovation faster, creating these small compartmentalized teams within organizations to accelerate innovation. Do you think kind of the same can be applied to creativity? Do you think smaller teams of dedicated creatives that are kind of working in the constraints of like almost like a skunk works project versus like bigger teams and ideas are being thrown from all directions? Do you think there's something that maybe permeates from that kind of MediaMonks experience that can be learned from?
I certainly think so. I think what you see in any organization, there's always there's very often just really a few people that really do the things that need to be done. I'm sure that wherever you worked, you had that. You always have these go-to people that will bring things forward, and they're just a small team. The monks thing is what was strong about them, that they came with everything they did from a maker's perspective. So the way they were structuring teams was very much about there was always a producer in front together with a creative. There weren't even account people at the beginning of it. They didn't even have
Wow.
strategists. It was just always production creative led. And I think it was always about whatever things were talked about. It was always about the next step of making the thing that needed to be delivered. Um, so yeah, yes, I do. I do really believe that it's not about the size of a team. I think it's the strongest teams are the ones where you have like small potent teams, and then you can maybe multiply that approach. But accountability also wanes when you have too many people working around the same thing.
Yeah, no, I love that. All right, we've made it for 26 minutes without talking about AI, but I don't think it's a
Oh,
modern
damn
marketing
it.
podcast if we don't, right? So, you specialize in creative AI initiatives. I think a lot of creatives, especially folks that come from maybe the art direction side of the house, have maybe seen AI as potentially like taking the soul out of work, and it's a little bit of a maybe with a little bit of fear of like the capabilities, and but also just like is it really art if it's being generated by a computer versus being generated by an artist? I'd be curious, how do you guys think about creativity at WongDoody from the perspective of coming up through the art director side of the house? How do you see AI being used in creativity in ways that are artistic versus completely technology led?
We really have there's like two lenses for WongDoody how we look at AI, and it has very much to do with the heritage of the company. So you have WongDoody, which is of course sprung from owner-led creative agency, hyper awarded from Seattle, which has been acquired 7 years ago by one of the biggest Indian tech companies, which is Infosys. And truly, the way we approach AI is almost like marrying these things together into one point of view. So generally, there's two ways how we engage with AI in our daily business, and one is it's part of ideation, research, and strategy process. So it's a tool that makes our workflow more interesting, helps our brains, helps us make things look good, helps us make our mockups. It's it's a it's like a paint box almost. That is like the creative side of AI, where if creators coming every day, it's like we should bring this into the workflow. This is so cool. Let's do this. Like there's only there's only excitement and love for the tool. There's no fear at all in that for us. Um, it's and on the other side for our clients, and that's of course why this is such a it's an unavoidable topic for so many reasons, and there's so many ways to talk about it. And I'm trying to keep it just about the work because there's ethical ways you can talk about AI, and it's just like it's a black hole. It's so interesting in so many ways. For clients, it's of course really in a nutshell. they see an opportunity to create more things for less money, to ask more from their vendors, and through our immense tech backbone, we are able to offer customized bespoke AI solutions to brands for whatever they need. So we work with P&G, for example, on a completely comprehensive way how they globally create and handle their assets, policing the brand identity within this. It's like a hyper complex thing. But for me as a creative, I'm more involved in the forefront of this, setting up these models, making sure they are educated in the right way by us before they can be handed over, at least partly, to a client. What we never do is that we completely give anything out of hand. So WongDoody is very much through the lens of we have this underlying notion of the human experience company. So we don't really believe in full automation. We really do believe that having a skilled human being with their taste, judgment, and soul, being the one that has an eye on whatever is happening within generative AI is really so important for the outcome for our clients. Because through scale and automation, there's also the risk if anything ever would go wrong, it would go very, very wrong. Like there's a whole other scale also to failure, where you have to be so on the watch out that everything is completely controlled, and marketing directors can sleep safely when they give such workflows really out of hand. And I think that's the mindset that we now see with our clients, where they realize that a quick win and saving money and budgets comes also at an immense risk, and we're helping to mitigate that risk and providing them with tools that allow them for like a safely execution of their marketing ecosystem.
Yeah, I think you're right. AI has the capability to hallucinate and sometimes make mistakes. And the problem with that is, you find yourself in some instances second guessing work more than you would that a human put together, because, it's like trust but verify. It's like, okay, well, these are incredible tools, but then when hallucinations happen, they can cause major mishaps. You might have heard the story of a lawyer who got disbarred because he was quoting case law that didn't exist, so there's definitely that opportunity.
Yes.
So I think that idea of like AI with creativity, but also having safety and guardrails, it feels to me like the Anthropic model almost, in a way, like good AI. You've led some really big campaigns that have been important in the experiential world. Things like Rapid Squid Game, the Challenge Stadium, and takeovers with the NBA and NHL. What do you think about the importance of experiential? As we kind of move into South by Southwest in a couple of weeks, it feels like there's more opportunities than ever to be with consumers and meet them in the real world. And as more and more of the digital experience becomes AI saturated, what kind of opportunity does that give brands to interact with their consumers in places where AI can't show up?
I mean, of course, within experiential, you can, of course, also engage AI for the user experience as well. So you won't be safe of AI in experiential in that sense. What you do already see, and you saw that already pre-AI dawn, and it's now accelerating, that humans have a desire for real and in-person experiences generally. So you see already a rise again in investment into experiential, actually. And you see it also when it comes to retail experiences. There's a slow pendulum backswing to more analog things. I'm sure you saw all the things about all the analog bars where people go and they can listen to vinyls and sit together, and you have to leave your phone outside. And the moment it's still a little niche, but I am sure there will be an extreme backlash of people that will have a need for whatever the real thing is. And I do still think even that AI could even still play a role within that, if it is fed and intermingled with something that is real, that is tangible. Like it's almost like the way your clothes are made. People care more than ever about that. They have ethically correctly made things. They want to know where they're from. They want to know that they can be recycled or that they were recycled. And still, there's the whole technical process, of course, of creating clothing for people. So technology can still play a very good role within things that are making a difference in everyday's life. So I'm very positive about AI, but I don't think it's just a blindly infusion into our daily lives. I think we as human beings have to make decisions where we wanted to do yeah, we have to orchestrate it within it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. This idea of craft. Like, it's one thing to understand your product journey, whether that product journey meets your values, whether that's recyclability or ethically sustained materials or, fair wage. But then there's this idea of craft where it's like, I don't care how it was made. I just care that I got it from a guy on Instagram who does it in his garage. I didn't buy it from Walmart.
Yes, yes.
And like I have a coffee table out there that I paid $1,500 for that I bought from a guy off Instagram because it's like I wanted that relationship with a human, an artist, a craftsperson, and I wanted to be able to tell the story about it, and be able to follow him on Instagram and see the other thing. Even though I'll probably never buy a table from him again, he lives in Santa Barbara, and I'm only going to need hopefully one $1,500 dinner table. But I feel like I have a relationship with this person versus I'm never going to have a relationship with Walmart, for instance, or
Yes.
maybe I should not judge Walmart too harshly. I should think about a furniture store. Maybe I'll have a relationship with Crate and Barrel. Maybe I won't with other furniture brands.
I feel you. I'm like that. I like to know where everything I have now is from. And I like to have fewer things that are more meaningful. And frankly, moving into I mean, we have two kids. And for New York, we have an okay apartment, but it's a lot smaller, I can tell you, than wherever we lived before. Here on the Upper East Side. So you have to like farm a well curated, and you let people go, not people, you let things go, and you just I just enjoy to have less, but being more considerate about what I have. I think that's so important.
Yeah, there's the whole, Michelle Kwando, trend a while back where it's like if it doesn't give you joy, get rid of it, and
Yes.
simplification and downsizing. I love all that. All right. We've got South by Southwest coming up. You've got some sessions pitched. Voting is open right now. What are some of the topics that you are hoping to deliver to the South by Southwest community this year?
So I had a. Oh, I think I'm just losing you. Are you still there,
Yeah. Oh,
Dylan?
sorry.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, it was just your focus. I'm sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No, that's my
Um,
bad. Thank you for
no,
noting. I wouldn't have seen it.
no, I have a very good anecdote for you. So I had proposed a session. I didn't get elected in the end. but it's very fitting for what we just spoke about. The session was called "My Mom Has Better Taste Than Your AI,"
I love it.
and
So good.
I don't think I didn't get it because it was a too controversial topic. But it but I would have loved to talk about it because in a really absurd sense, I do really believe that that is absolutely true. And not because my mom has extremely good taste. I mean, my mom has fine taste. It's not the point. But taste, for example, is something that I'm so fascinated in when it comes to machine learning. Because taste, in the end, is the experiences you go through in your life, which is different for everyone, and you build your own preferences as a person, it's your environment and how you grow up, and this will always be a unique thing. And of course, it can be potentially it can be emulated. Like I can train a large language model on exactly my experiences and try to build the context that I grew up with um, to then have my taste. But then even taste is something that is not even a logical consequence of your experience. So I find that it's like a pet peeve of mine is the notion of taste. Like I had these discussions with a friend tech director of mine when I tell them, yeah, but AI doesn't have taste. It can do everything and make everything and learn from everyone, but it cannot have taste, not in that sense. And from a technical standpoint, of course, you might argue that it can. Maybe I'm just afraid of letting that one go as a human being because then I don't know what I'm still doing here, I think that's just somewhere where you just have to draw the line because otherwise it becomes just an automated society in itself, and then my AI agent is just gonna have a podcast interview with your AI agent.
Oh, please no.
You should do an episode like that.
I know. It's really funny. I interviewed a leader from a big holding company yesterday in the studio, and he told me in order to prepare for that podcast, he actually had an AI look at all my work and then do a role play with and basically, have me as an AI ask him questions so he could prepare for the show. And I thought that was very creative, but I asked him, well, what was a question that you think that they would ask, or what question did the AI ask you that that they thought that I might ask you? And he said, well, they asked me to tell you about the biggest mistake that I ever made. And in full, when I think about it, that's not really a question that I would ask because I'm kind of an optimistic, I don't look for negative things. I feel like more often I try and look for positive things, but for whatever
Yeah.
reason, this AI, through looking at my 270 plus episodes, thought that would be a question that I asked. I don't think that's a question that I would have asked, but who knows? It's kind of funny. But
Isn't it scary that
oh
AI
yeah,
agent that you
totally.
just spoke about now remembers everything that you ever said better than you do remember it?
Totally. That's a good point. Maybe that was something that I would have said, and I just don't think I would have. But going back to your idea of taste, when I think about taste, I think about it as that it's that microscopic moment where I'm sifting through the clothes rack at a thrift store and I look at something for 1 second and I say, no, 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 yes. Right. And it's like, it's fast, it's almost subconscious. Or it's when I walk up to the water case and I scan and I quickly grab Liquid Death or I quickly grab Perrier and what reasons and why, what associations do I make with those brands. I think so much of our consumer instinct is still very much that it's instinct. And I wonder, is AI modeling instinct or are our brains just big computers at the end of the day? Because taste is, in my opinion, taste is the immediate notion that you either like or don't like something. That's what I think taste is.
I agree. I think
Yeah.
that's a very interesting description of taste, but it's very true. It's the expression of taste, maybe. I think
Yeah. Good
taste in
point.
itself is the the accumulation of everything that you experienced in positive, negative ways, places you've been, relationships you had, conversations you had, books you read, all that stuff. But you're right. This is a very interesting. The outcome of taste is the decisions you make in a moment instinctively. It's I might steal that from you. That's a very good
Well,
one.
the other thing that I think is interesting of taste is it doesn't follow logic. Like a lot of times, I just look at something like the analogy of like I do a lot of thrift store shopping, or my wife does, and sometimes I get dragged. And if they even have a men's section, which they usually have like one that's this small, right? Because men don't really get rid of things; they fall apart and they get thrown in the trash can. But you just look at something and you instinctively know whether you would wear it or whether you like it or whether you think it looks comfortable. You don't spend a lot of time fussing about it. And really, for me, that's not based on logic. It's just based on sense. I wonder if AI could, do that same project, to be able to like look at something and say yes or no. What's the criteria that they're basing that on?
You absolutely could train it to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
I No, you really you absolutely could. And of course, it's also just exponentially. I mean, it's not exponentially anymore because of limitations to technology and energy, really, at this point. But theoretically, what is possible from behavioral thing within generative AI is beyond what anybody really can even imagine right now. From when you just follow a little bit of stories within Anthropic and people that left the company because it's just spinning out of control for them, um, because it's just so sophisticated now. Um, I'm like so they hired this I think that was a woman that they hired, was only in charge of the soul of Claude, which I find just so amazing, really. So, but that said, I think you can absolutely. Claude already has taste, but it would be really interesting to find out if it already has if a specific taste for being Claude, as opposed to any kind of taste that you can extract of it because you prompt it to have taste.
Mm,
But you know what I mean? Like, is there an underlying taste? This is an entire possibility right now that there's an underlying approach to taste within Claude that we don't understand yet, as a being, almost. Um, and it could, otherwise, you could train a model, of course, to make the decision that you or I would make in a shop. But what does it really lead back to? That is what it would just be it just be an algorithm. Whereas for you, it would be, oh, this reminds me of something my grandfather had and I loved, or that's
yeah.
something I would never buy because the guy who I saw wearing this jacket was a total douche and I would never want this in my closet. Because this associative decision making that we do when we do this instinctive thing that you say, it's all based on all these things that we have. It might just not even smell in a way that you like it, right?
Yeah. Well, I think Claude could look at every picture that I ever posted about food. It could scan my credit cards and figure out what groceries I buy. It could look at every picture of me and see what types of clothes that I like to wear. And it can watch every piece of content that I ever consumed and tell me what to watch next. But would it ever know that I love Cadillacs because my grandpa drove one? And it's because that's what successful men in my family do. When they become successful, they buy Cadillacs. I wonder if Claude could ever figure that out with me articulating that story.
If you wouldn't tell it to anyone, there are all these things and experience, and that's again, that's what makes us so different as humans, and that's where there's an interesting friction with AI to amplify these stories that we have, but it's a true coexistence that makes this a beautiful thing. Um, if it drifts off into pure automation, it is it will just lose its soul, and that's I just don't believe in that. I think it's really important to to keep the soul alive in everything that we do, and that goes for advertising and asset management and all that stuff as well. Like I really do believe that.
I love it. So I wanted to ask you a question about creative leadership. The interesting component of the creative side of the house is that the better you do, the better accounts you win, the more statues you acquire, the more agencies want you to not do the thing that you did in order to win all those accolades and to win all that business. They want you to actually manage humans versus do creative things. I'm curious how you have navigated the role of creative leadership and how you have taken from being someone who builds and makes and injects creativity into work, and how have you been able to grow in the idea of shepherding the next generation and kind of maybe being a step higher than the work or being kind of in the weeds on the day to day?
It's a constant struggle, but for me it was always a positive struggle. I of course come from making the work, wanting to make the ad, wanting to design the thing and shoot the commercial and make the website, and have my hands in all the stuff. Being thrown into environments where you suddenly are responsible for people. I really think this time I told you about in Amsterdam, where what started like a freelance community around us to create the work, to having employees, was such a valuable lesson for me. Um, I really grew with that. Like I was frankly, it was so intimidating to be responsible for people's salaries and happiness in the workplace. And there were a bunch of kids, like really, they were like super young, completely underpaid, working like crazy creatives. They just loved to be around. But to be responsible for these people and to come to the office in the morning, and they were all there because they literally wanted to work with you and for you, made me really love that part of my job. So the the managing people, which it sounds like such a cold thing because it's of course the right thing to say, but I do think it's so much more than that. It's like you inspire them, you have to shout at them sometimes, you you help them come up with better stuff. You share your knowledge, which you just at some point you realize, oh wow, I've done this before. I know the answer to that. I I've made a million of those. Oh, I know what they're gonna say. You you learn suddenly like, oh, I've had so much experience now. I'm now on the other side of things. It's almost like a sentimental thing where you realize, oh wow, okay, I'm now one of the grown-ups. Like I now have to share my experience with the next generation, um, which is frankly something. And at WongDoody, we're like so aware of that. AI creates this new generation gap already, within almost every industry, but specifically in the creative industry, because these kind of the the junior roles are very often the first ones that are kind of replaced by AI workflows, which sounds super cool for companies that want to quickly save money and agencies that want to move fast, and they say we do this now with a smaller team. Um, but you still have to make sure that you have somebody that can do your job in 10 or 15 years.
Yeah,
You
it's
don't want to,
the creative pipeline.
yes, you don't want to completely age out the creative industry. Like you do still need the kids because you need to, you need them to, you literally need them to feed yourself, but also the algorithm.
Yeah.
Because in the end, the algorithm will also just learn from the new things that are fed into it. If the large language model doesn't get fed, it's gonna be flatten out. Um, and me and my colleagues would also flatten out if we wouldn't have like the new kids on the block to tell us what they're busy with. You know, you're just gonna lose touch.
Yeah, we need data to fill the algorithms and the LLMs, and we need data to fill us up as the older generation and to know what's cool and what's trending and what's hip and what's exciting and what's vanguard and what's cutting edge. So awesome. Well, Falk, I've had a great time chatting with you today. Thanks for spending some time connecting and chatting with the audience. If folks want to connect with you or stay in touch or reach out and learn more about WongDoody, where would you like to point folks?
Maybe it's easiest just to hit me up on LinkedIn. Falk Eumann on LinkedIn. Just find me, hit me up there. I think that's probably the easiest.
Love it. And for those of you who are watching at home, if this is the first time you're seeing the show, don't forget to give us a follow or a subscribe. If you're listening to the show, a honest review on whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening on is how we find a larger audience. And if there's a creative out there, or maybe someone in brand marketing, maybe an agency leader who's looking to deal with some of the issues that we talked about in the expanding role of AI and creativity agency life, don't forget to share the show. And with that, I will thank you for your time, Falk, and I will look forward to staying in touch. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Dylan. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure. See you around.